What's up, guys? Welcome to our first week of our Sigma Freestyle progression series. This week, we're going to be focusing on the streamline. Now, most people think of the streamline as when you push off the wall, keeping everything all tight together, making ourselves as tall as possible. But it's not just that. Streamline is present in all 4 strokes. Some of the thought processes you need to have is, how can I minimize deviations off the midline? Well, what does that mean, you might ask? So, when we're swimming any stroke for that matter, freestyle in this video should be focusing on going forward. All our energy should be spent moving forward. Any deviations from that, left, right, up or down, are going to detract from any energy we can to go forward. Minimizing those deviations makes us as tight as possible and as straight as possible. With the streamline, you want to think about having the 3 H's in line, okay? It's your head, your hips, and your heels. With the 3 H's in line, you're gonna know that everything is going to be straight. In other videos, if you wanna click the link to find some of our adult swim videos, where we talked about the back float. You can see some of the effects of the streamline in the back float when we do that. When I keep my body in line, everything stays straight on the surface. My head, my hips, and my feet or my heels. But if I pick my head up out of line, my hips sink. Any deviation from this is going to lead to resistance. If I pick my head up, my hips are gonna sink. If I lower my feet, my head is gonna rise to the surface. Obviously, I did that on my back just so that I could keep talking to you guys, but the same thing applies for when I'm doing it on my stomach. If I take my head up, you're gonna notice my hips are gonna drop immediately. So the first main cue when we're doing streamline is really keeping that focus on the 3 H's. If you've got that, you're halfway there. When we're swimming freestyle, which we're gonna work on future videos, so make sure to click the bell, follow, like, subscribe, anything you can do to keep up with us week to week. When we're swimming freestyle, you wanna stay focused on keeping a thin layer of water over the top of the cap. So the water level is going to be focused on just over the middle of my head with my ears submerged, keeping that body line, okay? This is going to translate into the fundamentals of swimming. I can't stress enough how important the streamline is. It really focuses on the foundations of our strokes. We start with the trunk of our body. It's the core. You know, we talk a lot, you hear fitness influencers and YouTubers talk about the core. The core really is the most important part of your body, and it continues in swimming. Then we're gonna be able to add our kick, add our pull, and move on from there. There are a couple good ways that we can implement when we're in the water in order to work on our streamline. One of the things you wanna think about, as I was talking about before, is where our head position is. Using the kickboard as a demonstration, we could follow along with our body position. Ideally, we want a perfectly straight line. But when I pick my head up, my hips and my feet are gonna drop. Likewise, if I bury my head, my hips and my feet are gonna rise. Things are gonna be out of line. We're gonna be experiencing resistance. It's gonna make swimming harder than it needs to be. Now, getting into the streamline position, we wanna think about ways that are applicable. We talked about the kickboard. Another way that you can think about is posture. A lot of people have trouble with posture on land. Unfortunately, some of those things are going to translate when you're in the water. We want to think about being as straight as possible. So if I slouch, my hips are going to come up. If I arch my back, my body is going to drop my hips. We want to be straight. You want to think about your back and your head and your heels being against a wall. So if I told you to stand against a wall as straight as possible, how would your body feel? That same feeling should translate to when we're in the water. Now, I'm going to use the kickboard as an example, but you can do this on a wall if you need to. When you get into the streamline position, you can hold on the wall and just start by putting your head in the water. After this, you can do it with one leg and then eventually getting up into 2 legs. If you've seen some of our adult swim videos, you can see that the back float that we've worked on will translate exactly into this streamline. The front float will translate exactly into the streamline. All of those skills focus on keeping the head, the hips, and the heels in line. If we can do that, our body will remain as straight as possible and we'll be having a lot more fun while we're swimming. All right, guys, now I'm here with Sabera and we're going to practice some of the techniques that we talked about earlier in the video. Once again, to briefly reiterate what we talked about, the big emphasis is going to be on your head, your hips, and your heels being in line. So everything that we do for the next portion of this video is going to be focused on keeping your head, hips, and heels in line. The first thing that we're going to practice is just the regular wall streamline. So the big focus, and I want you to do it with me, is putting your hands up, pushing your biceps behind your ears, and getting as tall and as tight as possible. We're going to be doing that off the wall, and then just gliding through it, trying to stay and keep within the midline down off the wall. Does that make sense? All right, whenever you're ready. You want to keep this perfect straight midline, because if you deviate from that, we're going to see floating one way or another. We're not going to have the same efficiency. Even though we're not using any propulsion right now, it's important to keep that straight line. Awesome job. And moving on from that, progressing, after you push off the wall, you still have to maintain that streamline. As I emphasized in the first half of the video, we have to focus on maintaining that straight body line even into the stroke itself. Now, we're going to practice pushing off in body position. With some of the younger kids, we call it Superman position. So what I'm going to want you to do is I'm going to want you to push off, arms at 10 and 2, or Superman position, with a light flutter kick in a neutral head position. So your head should be halfway underwater, looking straight at the bottom. Whenever you're ready. Perfect. As you see, after the streamline, the initial streamline, we're working on pushing into the stroke progressions and practicing working on maintaining that nice neutral spine, neutral head position, perfect body line. Great job on that. Now, the next step. Freestyle is not a square stroke. We do not swim it perfectly on our stomach. In a future video, we're going to talk about rotations. But for now, I want to focus on orienting ourselves into a freestyle body position, which is more inherently towards your side or your 3/4 side. So what we're going to do now, same thing, neutral head position, except you're going to open your hips. One arm is going to be up, one arm is going to be down, working a nice, perfect neutral spine. Does that sound good? Yeah. Awesome. Big focus is maintaining your head and eyes towards the bottom of the pool. Very light and loose from the legs. Kick isn't the important part here. The important thing is we stress our body position. In keeping that nice, open, dry shoulder, open hips, we set ourselves up to build into the natural progression of freestyle. As we said in the front half of the video, the first half of, or the internal portion of the body is the most important part. The trunk, the midline. We can worry about our limbs later, but if we have a very well-oriented trunk of our body, our freestyle is going to have a great baseline. All right, now, so to finish this video for Streamline, we're gonna finish up with a drill called 6-kick switch. Now what that is going to be kicking on your side with a neutral head position like we've done a little bit earlier. But every 6 kicks, you're going to switch arms. So what I want you to do is kick with a nice neutral head position, open hips. Then every 6 kicks, switch arms. Other side, big focus, neutral spine, neutral hips, head, hip, and heels, all in line. Does that make sense? All right, we're gonna do that whenever you're ready. This drill is a great predecessor to a lot of other drills that we're going to be working on throughout this series. And it's a great way to start preparing yourself to have a really nice head position and set up the rest of your body and the rest of your stroke. Once we get into arms, 6-kick switch is going to offer a great baseline to some of those drills. Big focus is continuing to keep the 3 H's in line. We are very much focused on one axis being perfectly straight so that if we were head on, it would just look like a single dot. Great focus points going forward. We've kicked it off with Streamline, and I can't wait to see what's next. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you.
Thanks for watching today's video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe, share, ring the bell, comment with any questions. If you're in the DFW area and you'd like more information on swim lessons or swim team, be sure to visit www.sigmaswim.org.